When did we start believing that growing old means becoming dependent, giving up, or becoming invisible to the world and to ourselves? It's a simple, almost obvious question, but when we look at it head-on, it's unsettling. Many people reach 60 with the feeling that they've lived up to everyone's expectations except their own, as if their own life had been put on hold, and now all that's left is to endure the passage of time. Maybe you too feel like you did the right thing for years. You gave, you cared, you supported, and you let go more than you can even measure today. And still, the peace you were promised never came. This space isn't about idealizing aging or denying its limits, but about showing something deeper and more freeing. There are people who, at this stage of life, live with more health, more calm, and more inner freedom than ever before. Not because they have more external support, but because they've learned to stand on their own from within. And even though no one ever taught us how, that can be learned. I'm Gabriel. I've spent many years studying and practicing Stoicism as it applies to everyday life, especially in times of maturity, in relationships, and in emotional dignity. If this moment in your life is calling for clarity, quiet strength, and an honest return to yourself, I invite you to stay until the end of this video and to join us on this channel. Here, we walk together, unhurried, but with a clear direction. Reaching maturity in good health isn't a matter of luck. It's the direct result of how a person has learned to relate to their body and mind over time. Many people realize too late that they handed over their well-being to doctors, to someone else's routines, or to the hope that someone else would take care of it. Mastery of the body and mind begins when you accept, without drama, that this body is now your most direct responsibility and that your mind needs the same care as your muscles and joints. When I speak of mastery, I don't mean rigidity or obsession, but a sober and conscious relationship with yourself. Epictetus put it clearly when he reminded us that we don't control what happens outside of us, but we do control how we respond. In maturity, that response becomes both physical and mental. The body can no longer tolerate constant excess, and the mind can no longer endure useless noise. This is where the first foundation begins, mastery of the body and mind as the true basis for health and inner peace. I've seen many older people regain vitality not by doing more, but by doing better. Walking mindfully, resting without guilt, eating without punishment or extreme indulgence, listening to the body's signals without dramatizing them. Modern neuroscience confirms something the Stoics already sensed. The brain remains plastic even in old age, but it responds to consistency, not to impulses. The mind grows stronger when there's rhythm, when there's alignment between what you think and what you do. There's a widespread cultural trap that says after a certain age, taking care of yourself isn't worth it, as if decline were inevitable. That idea is not only false, it's dangerous. Marcus Aurelius warned that neglecting the body eventually drags down the spirit. When someone lets themselves go physically, the mind becomes more fragile, more reactive, more dependent. On the other hand, when you cultivate gentle discipline, something powerful appears: self-respect. Maybe you're wondering where to begin if you've been putting yourself off for years. The answer doesn't lie in big changes or heroic promises. It lies in small daily actions that silently say, "I'm still here, and I matter." Mastery isn't about prolonging youth. It's about living this stage of life with dignity. And when that happens, the body stops being an enemy, and the mind stops being a battlefield. This first foundation is essential, because without it, everything else weakens. Inner freedom can't be sustained in an exhausted body or an overloaded mind. When you learn to govern yourself calmly, without inner violence, you begin to experience something many only discover in maturity. A form of health that doesn't depend on perfection, but on coherence. With that in place, we can move on to the next foundation, the one that allows that coherence to become true freedom. There's a quiet moment that often comes with maturity, when you realize that many of the things you've accumulated aren't bringing you peace, but weighing you down. And I don't just mean objects. I'm talking about unnecessary commitments, responsibilities that no longer belong to you, and other people's expectations you continue to carry out of habit. This second foundation, material simplicity and inner freedom, emerges when an older person understands that letting go isn't about losing, but about making space to breathe again. Seneca warned that poverty isn't having little, but needing much. In youth, that idea often sounds abstract, but over time, it becomes very real. Everything you own demands energy, attention, and upkeep. Every obligation you didn't choose drains your mental space. Many older adults aren't tired because of their age, but because of the unnecessary weight they continue to carry. This is where simplicity becomes a deeply stoic and liberating act. I've seen people transform their well-being simply by organizing their surroundings and their lives with honesty, not as a trend, like minimalism, but through a personal and mature question. Is what I'm holding on to helping me or draining me? Modern psychology shows that cluttered environments increase anxiety and reduce mental clarity. The Stoics knew this, even if they didn't call it that. A sober space calms the mind because it reflects an internal decision not to live scattered. Material simplicity doesn't mean giving up pleasure. It means choosing it consciously. It means favoring the essential over the superficial, what nourishes over what impresses. Many people discover that by letting go of things, they also let go of fears. Fear of not being enough, of not having enough, of not measuring up. When you stop defining yourself by what you own, you start defining yourself by how you live. This point also touches on something sensitive: freedom from other people's expectations. At a certain age, continuing to live for what others expect becomes a quiet form of slavery. Inner simplicity is learning to say, "This is enough for me." Epictetus said it plainly. True wealth is wanting little and needing even less. And that wealth doesn't depend on money, it depends on clarity. When an older person simplifies their life, something powerful happens. More time appears, more energy, more peace. The mind stops being occupied with maintaining the unnecessary and makes space for what truly matters. This foundation is key because it sets the stage for the next one, where life stops feeling like a burden to endure and starts taking shape through a chosen, meaningful daily purpose. Many people reach maturity with a strange sense of disorientation. The external structure that once gave shape to their days is no longer there. Work fades or disappears, the children move on with their own lives, and suddenly, the time that was once scarce becomes abundant. And with that, a quiet question emerges, one that few dare to face head-on. Why do I get up each morning now? This third foundation, conscious routine and daily purpose, answers that question not with grandeur, but with depth. Stoicism never saw routine as empty repetition, but as an anchor. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every day, not because he doubted what he had learned, but because he knew the mind needs to be realigned again and again. In maturity, a consciously chosen routine doesn't confine you, it supports you. It tells the mind there's direction and the body there's care. When there's no structure, the mind wanders, and when it wanders too much, anxiety, apathy, or a sense of uselessness can set in. There's something important I want you to notice about this point. Conscious routine and daily purpose aren't about filling your day with activities just to avoid feeling empty. It's about creating a rhythm that holds meaning for you. A simple schedule for movement, for reading, for organizing your space, for silence, for conversation. Modern psychology confirms that the brain responds better when there's gentle predictability, not rigidity, but predictability. It reduces stress and restores a sense of internal control. I've worked with older people who found joy again, not because their life became extraordinary, but because each day stopped feeling like a formless block of time. When routine has meaning, even the simplest things become valuable. Making coffee with care, walking at the same time each day, setting aside a moment for reflection, or writing. Viktor Frankl reminded us that human beings need meaning more than pleasure, and that meaning often comes from the everyday, not the exceptional. Before we continue, let me take a brief pause, not to interrupt, but to better accompany you on this path. If this content is helping you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave your name and the country you're listening from in the comments. I always read them, and it helps me know who's walking this journey with us. Now let's get back to it. A conscious routine is also an act of dignity. It's a way of telling the world, and yourself, that life still holds value, even if it's no longer defined by external productivity. When an older person organizes their day with self-respect, they stop feeling adrift. The routine becomes an inner pillar that supports self-esteem and peace. This foundation is crucial because it sets the stage for something deeper. When the day has meaning, loneliness stops being a threat and can become a fertile space. With this base in place, we can move toward an aspect many fear, but when understood well, it becomes an unexpected source of inner strength. There's a word that tends to scare us more as we grow older: solitude. For years, we were taught to fear it, to confuse it with abandonment, failure, or punishment. And yet, many older people who live in peace discover something surprising at first. Not all solitude hurts. There is a kind of solitude that wears you down, but there's also a solitude that restores, that cleanses, and that strengthens. This fourth foundation is called chosen solitude and fertile silence, and it's one of the greatest sources of inner freedom at this stage of life. I want you to really pay attention to this idea because it completely changes the way we view the subject. Being alone is not the same as feeling alone. Being alone can be a conscious choice. Feeling alone is a wound. The Stoics deeply valued moments of retreat, not as an escape from the world, but as a return to oneself. Epictetus said that a person who cannot be alone with themselves ends up a slave to noise and to the opinions of others. In maturity, that teaching becomes especially clear. Many older adults surround themselves with noise, constant TV, empty conversations, or unnecessary commitments, just to avoid listening to themselves. But silence is not the enemy. Silence is uncomfortable at first because it confronts us with what we've been avoiding. But when approached with patience, it becomes fertile. Emotions begin to settle, memories lose their weight, and a clearer, kinder, inner voice starts to emerge. From a psychological perspective, we know that moments of conscious silence regulate the nervous system and reduce anxiety. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, it's about choosing when and with whom to share your time. Chosen solitude brings back clarity. It helps you see which relationships nourish you and which only drain you. Many older people regain emotional energy simply by no longer forcing themselves to always be available. There's something important I want to tell you honestly. Learning to be well on your own doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself. Viktor Frankl reminded us that human beings can endure almost any situation when they find meaning, and that meaning often only becomes audible when the noise quiets down. Fertile silence doesn't take away your humanity, it gives it back to you. When an older person transforms solitude into a chosen space, something profound happens. They no longer seek company out of fear, but out of affinity. They no longer tolerate any relationship just to avoid being alone. From that place, Peace becomes more stable and inner freedom more real. This foundation prepares the way for the next one, where that inner clarity becomes something essential for emotional dignity. Learning to set clear boundaries without guilt and without harshness. There comes a point in life when you realize that the greatest exhaustion didn't come from hard work or life's inevitable challenges. It came from not knowing how to protect yourself in your relationships. Many older adults carry a deep fatigue that isn't physical, it's emotional. The fatigue of giving in, staying silent, constantly adapting, being available even when they had nothing left to give. That's why this fifth foundation, clear boundaries and emotional dignity, is so important. I want you to understand something from the start. Setting boundaries isn't about hardening your heart, it's about putting it in order. For years, we were taught that saying no was selfish, especially when it came to children, partners, or close family. But Musonius Rufus, one of the great Stoic teachers, insisted that a virtuous life cannot be built on the constant sacrifice of one's own dignity. When you abandon yourself to hold others up, resentment eventually appears, even if you never say it out loud. This is exactly where clear boundaries and emotional dignity come in. A healthy boundary is not a punishment, it's a signal. It's saying to another person, "This is as far as I go," without over-explaining or endlessly justifying yourself. Modern psychology confirms what many older adults already feel in their bodies. When there are no boundaries, the nervous system lives in a constant state of alert. You brace for the next demand, the next complaint, the next criticism, and living like that wears down your soul. Maybe you recognize yourself in this scenario, an adult child who still blames you as if everything were your fault, a partner who ignores your time and your fatigue, a circle of people who assume you'll always be available. Setting boundaries in later life doesn't break healthy relationships, it redefines them. Those who truly love you may be uncomfortable at first, but they learn to respect you. Those who only benefited from your endless giving may drift away. And though that may hurt, it too brings a kind of peace. Epictetus said that no one can harm us without our consent. In relationships, that consent is often given out of habit, guilt, or fear of losing love. Learning to say no calmly, without anger, without guilt, is one of the greatest acts of inner freedom. You don't need to yell or explain yourself forever. Your boundary speaks for you when it's held with consistency. When an older person reclaims their emotional dignity, something shifts inside. Guilt begins to loosen its grip, the body finds rest, and the mind becomes clearer. Boundaries don't isolate you, they bring order, and from that order, life becomes lighter. This foundation prepares us for the next step, perhaps the hardest and most liberating of all. Making peace with the passage of time and with your own story without continuing to fight what's already behind you. There's a silent battle many older adults continue to fight without even realizing it. It's not a fight with the present, it's with the past. With decisions they now judge harshly, with paths they didn't take, with versions of themselves that no longer exist. This sixth foundation begins when that battle ends. It's called acceptance of time and reconciliation with your personal story, and it's one of the deepest sources of peace in later life. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or pretending everything was fine. Acceptance means no longer wasting energy arguing with what can't be changed. Marcus Aurelius said it with admirable calm, reminding us that time takes everything, even the things we thought were final. When someone keeps fighting their own story, the body feels it. Tension shows up, fatigue lingers, sadness surfaces without a clear reason. Not because life was unfair, but because the mind is still trapped in constant judgment over what once was. There's something essential I want you to notice about this idea of accepting time. You can't rewrite your past, but you can reframe it. Neuroscience shows that the brain doesn't store memories as fixed facts, but as stories. Stories we rewrite each time we remember them. When you look at your past only through guilt or blame, you reinforce the wound. But when you start looking at it with understanding, without indulgence, but without cruelty, something within you begins to release. Many older adults carry around inner phrases like, "I should have done more," "I failed," "I was too late." These thoughts don't teach anything new. They only punish. Stoicism offers a different lens. Learn from the past without living in it. Use your experience as wisdom, not as a chain. Every stage had its limits, its level of awareness, its conditions. Judging your past self with today's knowledge is a form of inner injustice. Viktor Frankl spoke about the human capacity to find meaning even in suffering, not to romanticize it, but to integrate it. Reconciling with your personal story doesn't mean applauding your mistakes. It means recognizing that even with them, you're still here. That there's a dignified continuity between who you were and who you are now. When that reconciliation happens, nostalgia stops hurting and the present becomes easier to live in. This foundation is crucial because it opens the heart to something even deeper. When you stop fighting your past, you create space for a new kind of relationship with yourself, not as your judge, but as your companion. And from that place, we arrive at the final support, perhaps the most transformative of all. Learning to truly love yourself and becoming your own best friend in this stage of life. There's a truth many find hard to accept, yet it marks a turning point in later life. There comes a moment when you realize that not everyone will always be there to support you emotionally, to truly listen, or to sit with you in silence. And far from being a tragedy, that realization can become a profound liberation. This final foundation is called self-love and becoming your own best friend, and it has nothing to do with isolating yourself or becoming indifferent to the world. For years, we were taught to look outside for what we didn't know how to give ourselves: understanding, care, validation. In maturity, Stoicism offers something different and much more solid. Marcus Aurelius spoke to himself like a demanding but loyal friend. He didn't belittle or deceive himself, he stayed present. That's real self-love, not indulgence or self-pity, but constant inner presence. I want you to really hear this, because it's central to this idea of self-love and becoming your own best friend. Being kind to yourself doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means not abandoning yourself when it hurts. It means not speaking to yourself with contempt, not pushing yourself with impossible demands, not comparing yourself to who you once were. Modern psychology confirms that our inner dialogue has a direct impact on mental and physical health, especially in old age. Those who mistreat themselves internally age faster, even if no one notices from the outside. Many older people discover too late that they were more understanding with others than with themselves. They excused others' mistakes, tolerated mistreatment, supported others through hard times, but didn't offer themselves the same patience. Becoming your own best friend is about changing that pattern. It's about asking yourself honestly what you need today and listening without judgment. It's about taking care of yourself even when no one's watching. The kind of self-love I'm talking about doesn't damage relationships, it refines them. When you treat yourself with respect, you stop begging for affection and start choosing relationships from a place of calm. Epictetus said that those who learn to be enough for themselves stop being slaves to others' approval, not because they don't need anyone, but because they no longer abandon themselves to avoid being alone. At this stage of life, the greatest act of freedom is this: to be with yourself without running away, to listen without punishment, to support yourself without growing hard. When an older person becomes their own best friend, something settles for good. Loneliness stops hurting, the past stops weighing you down, and the present becomes gentler. From that place, peace no longer depends on others being there, but on you not walking away from yourself. Throughout this journey, we've explored 7 foundations that many older adults have learned to build in order to live with greater health, peace, and inner freedom. These aren't formulas or empty promises. They're a different way of living life. Mastery of body and mind, material simplicity, meaningful routine, chosen solitude, clear boundaries, reconciliation with your personal story, and finally, self-love as inner friendship. None of this happens overnight. It's cultivated with patience and honesty. If there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's this. Maturity is not the end of the road. It's a privileged moment to live with less noise and more truth. Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny what hurts. It teaches you how not to be destroyed by it. This isn't about needing others less out of pride, but about supporting yourself better so you don't live from a place of lack. Thank you truly for making it this far and for giving yourself this moment of reflection. This channel exists to accompany mature individuals who want to live with emotional dignity, inner clarity, and real, not superficial, peace. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to leave in the comments the phrase that sums up this journey. Today, I choose to support myself from within. I'm Gabriel, and I'm walking this path with you. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself, respect yourself, and remember something essential. It's never too late to treat yourself with the dignity you've always deserved.